I'm District Governor-elect Dave Alexander, and I am Chair of the Governance Committee for our district. And I'd like to thank everybody for joining us today. There are 4 subcommittees of the Governance Committee, and the District Abuse and Protection Committee is one of them, and it's been around for a couple of years. The way tonight's presentation is going to work is that I'm going to hand it over to Tim Carter, and he's going to introduce the topic and introduce Bernie, who's going to lead us through the presentation. Then we'll have time for Q&A. I'm District Governor-elect Dave Alexander, and tonight's presentation is brought to you by the District Abuse and Protection Committee. And we're going to go over a number of tools for clubs so that you're going to protect yourself and participants and members in your work. Tim's going to give us a more fulsome introduction, and Bernie's going to lead us through the presentation. So, Tim, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Dave. I appreciate it. Well, my name is Tim Carter. I am the chairperson of the District Abuse and Protection Committee. As Dave said in his first introduction, the DAPC committee falls under the Governance Committee. It's one of the 4 committees under the Governance Committee. It's been in existence for right around 2 years, and I've been the chairperson for probably 5 months, maybe 4 months. So the purpose of this committee has been to, over the last 2 years, is to review, make recommendations to the Governance Committee around a policy, procedure, and implementation of the policy for abuse, neglect, harassment, and things like that. And what if it occurs to a vulnerable person, or if it occurs within a Rotary meeting. Besides being the chairperson of this committee, I'm also the president of Niagara County Central and Niagara Falls Rotary that just merged together. And I'm the superintendent of Wilson Central School District in northern Western New York. So prevention of abuse and neglect and harassment is part of what I do every single day. This particular training, this is Bernie and myself, second time we've done it. So please bear with us. Bernie's going to run through most of the slides and the definitions of the different angles of this policy. And at the end, there's a couple scenarios that I'll kind of run through that could have happened or may have happened in your club or could happen in the future. And our hope is to take away what the different definitions are, that there is a process within Rotary for reporting incidences of abuse, neglect, harassment. And when that reporting system happens, the DAPC committee takes over, and there's 2 of us that are designated to do the investigation and make a recommendation based upon that recommendation. So I hope I did justice on an introduction, Bernie, and I'll hand it off to you to take it from there.
Okay, I think we're good. Everyone can see that. So again, thank everyone for coming today. So we are a group of Rotary volunteers. You can see that there's a mix of us from US and Canada. So again, there's always challenges sometimes with it being a cross-border, but this committee is formed of Tim Carter, Mark Walling from Hamburg, myself, Duncan Willock from St. Catharines, and Richard and Darren Boynton from the Brantford Sunrise Club. So our role, like Tim alluded to review and develop and implement policy regarding abuse. We recommend training and implementation tools to clubs. And we would investigate incidences that are presented to the district. So again, Rotary, takes abuse very, abuse, neglect, and harassment very, you know, it's a very important thing for us to understand, and we hope that these things never happen, but we never know. Most of this policy, I'll say, was developed around the youth exchange and youth programs in Rotary. So you'll see sometimes it's alluded to youth specifically, but this is really for all people, vulnerable, young, old, and everyone. So so the whole reason is for this is that we want to stop any type of abuse or harassment or neglect before it happens. So we're just going to start with what abuse is. So there's obviously numerous types of abuse, but abuse really is anything that will cause or likely cause injury to an individual, intimidation, bullying, and harmful treatment. So that's the broad definition. Obviously, there's physical abuse, which is fairly straightforward, that it would consist of physical contact with another person, and it's intended to likely cause pain or injury or suffering. Sexual abuse is the one, I guess, that we're very familiar with. And I'm just going to go to the next slide here. So sexual abuse shall be conduct by an adult that consists of any touching of sexual or intimate parts of another person, which is fairly straightforward. Providing, receiving, or any attempt to provide, receive photographs or images. So these don't necessarily have to be actual photographs. They could be cartoon images. So we always have to be careful of any type of photograph or image that we send, whether it's directly to a person or in jest. We just have to always be cognizant of that. And again, the sexual abuse can be communication in any form. So again, this goes to our new world of texting and social media, email, electronic means of communications. And of course, any request for sexual favors from an adult. And it references a host family there, but it really could be any from any club member. So I'm just going to skip back up to the previous slide. So that covers sexual abuse, and then there's emotional or verbal abuse. And in my estimation, I think this is the one that we as Rotarians and clubs can fall into a little more easily, because it does concern the verbal or nonverbal action that threatens, humiliates, harasses, intimidates, or isolates other people. So again, it can include, yelling, cursing, so ridicule. So those are things that I've been a Rotarian for many years, and obviously some sergeant at arms can get onto the joke thing, not so much anymore. But again, those are things that in today's day and age, there's no place in Rotary for that, and we have to be aware of that. And if these things happen, we have to make the people aware of it. Then there's the harassment. So harassment is communication or conduct that is intended or expected to be construed as an attack on the dignity of a person. And that could be based on the person's color, race, national origin, religious beliefs, ethnicity, age, sex, perceived gender, physical characteristics, sexual orientation, and or a perceived physical or mental disability. So again, it's a broad range, and we always have to be cognizant of how that other person feels, and we can't take liberties of how we treat them. Neglect is a very harsh. It really means it threatens the person's welfare or health. And it could be physical neglect, where we're not even providing someone's basic needs, or medical neglect if they're in need of medical attention or care. Or it could be even inadequate supervision. So again, coming from the youth exchange, if the youth aren't properly supervised, that could be a form of neglect. And then there's emotional neglect as well, which occurs when a person is deprived of their emotional needs. So it's a broad spectrum of abuse, and it goes, we're often, when we think of abuse, it's usually physical or sexual, but the emotional, verbal, and these others are very important to understand as well. I'm just going to skip ahead. I've gone through this sexual abuse slide. So, so that's kind of abuse and the meanings of it. So what are the recommendations of this committee? So we're hoping that each club would take reasonable measures to allow members and participants of events to be able to confidentially report incidences that are believed to be harassment or abuse. So we would there will be more on that coming up. And then we would hope that club programs and activities should be planned to minimize the potential for abuse, neglect, or harassment. So that means basically club, anything that the club organizes should be open. Nothing should ever be behind closed doors or with, less than, 2 people kind of thing. So just always be cognizant of the fact that it has to be open. And then the committee would suggest that all clubs are strongly encouraged to ensure that all members who engage in any of the club programs or activities are given clearly defined roles and guidance on how they should perform under those rules. And then finally, well, again, this just goes any club event or activity that includes especially the participation of vulnerable persons. So again, youth or perhaps elderly people, all those events should be properly supervised to minimize the potential of inappropriate conduct. So again, if it's something around youth, always making sure there's more than one adult around, so there's always 2 or more supervising these things. It just mitigates any room for unwanted activity. So the district is, as Dave alluded to in his introduction, and again, Rotary International takes abuse and harassment very seriously. So the district requires that Rotary clubs within the district to adopt and follow these recommendations, so that each and this is part of the reason why many of you are attending tonight, so that each Rotary Club is strongly encouraged to adopt the district's abuse, neglect, and harassment prevention policy. This policy has been developed over a number of years, and it's available on the District 7090 website. It's quite easy to find under the governance committees. You'll find our committee, and all of the forms are there. As well, each Rotary Club should be providing members and volunteers training concerning the prevention of abuse, neglect, and harassment. So again, those involved in any type of youth exchange, it is required now that we go through that training, and this is what we want to do get this out to the clubs, that everyone, all of us in District 7090 have had some training regarding this. And then each club is also encouraged to designate a member of the club to assist with the development and implementation of reasonable measures to protect vulnerable persons who participate in club programs or activities or events. So again, our club, the Brantford Sunrise, has a abuse, harassment, and prevention committee. And so there is a chairperson of that committee, and that again, that person should be, in charge of making sure that members are aware of, abuse, harassment, and prevention policies. As well, if there ever was an incident, it would actually start the process by going to that chair of that committee. So steps that we can take to prevent harassment, which prevention is, the best way to deal with this. So that we would see that all Rotarians must take reasonable measures to ensure protection of all. So again, that there's always, if there's vulnerable people or youth around, that they're always in the care of at least 2 adults. And that again, club and district activities are delivered in a safe environment. That training is made available to clubs, members, and volunteers. And that any persons witnessing or becoming aware of an incident should immediately report to the club committee, and failing there isn't one, to the district committee. So again, our committee is available to, take reports if the club doesn't have a designated person to deal with it. And that's what the district committee is set up for. So should something happen, obviously it's maybe common sense, but we have to say that anyone who witnesses or becomes aware of incidences that may constitute a violation of the policy should report the information to again their own club committee, who would then in turn report it to the district chairperson or district abuse and prevention committee member, or the governor president within 48 hours of witnessing or learning such an incident. So it just means if something happens, it's better to deal with it immediately and not mull it over. So it gets the ball rolling to get to the bottom of what could or could not be an incident. So when the governor or president receives such a report, the district chairperson will be provided all the relevant information that was received concerning the report. And then when the report is made, the governor will be informed of, so again, it's the district governor and the committee working together to get all the information that's required. And then within 72 hours of receiving or being advised of a reported violation, we'll ensure all information is provided to the district insurers, the legal counsel, and the district board of directors. Again, these are more of the, we know that there can be varying degrees of abuse and harassment, so it would follow protocol. So for each incident that's reported. And obviously, any reports that are made, all the information that is taken always remains confidential. So again, if a Rotarian does need to report an incident, if it has, it is a serious nature, then it should immediately be reported to the local law. Yeah, it should be reported to the local law authorities if it's of a very serious nature. And then if it is suspected that the incident constitutes a crime, again, we need to get that reported to the proper authorities immediately. And again, if in any of these reports, all the information in such reports is confidential, and the privacy of the members would be, taken seriously. And but again, if it was necessary to conduct an investigation or required by federal, state, or provincial local law, then we share that information. So again, this just goes to the fact that if a report is made and needs to be reported to the local authorities, that would happen. When a report of a violation is made and it is determined by the law enforcement or court that the person, that person should be prohibited from further involvement with any participants of a vulnerable nature. So if a report is made against someone, it just makes sense that they would be, until the investigation is completed, that they would be removed from having any further contact. Excuse me. So if an investigation by a law enforcement or the district committee is inconclusive, then the person involved, should be cautioned to not have further participation with vulnerable people unless additional safeguards are implemented. And then if a report is made, the investigator, which would probably be the district committee, must complete their investigation within 3 weeks of doing so, and then provide a written report that describes the investigation, including the witnesses, materials reviewed, and state the findings of fact about what occurred. So it's quite a process that would be followed if an incident was reported. So if an incident does occur, there is a form on the website called a complaint form. And so this is found on the website. So it's pretty straightforward about who the Rotarian's name is, the names of the alleged victims, and the names of the alleged abusers or harassers, a detailed instrument, and if there's any other supporting documentation. So this is on the website, on the District 70990 website. Also, as I alluded to, what is found there is the abuse, neglect, and harassment protocol. So this is an acknowledgement that would be used for club members. I know for myself, each of our club members has to have signed this so that they're aware of the prevention of harassment and abuse protocols and policies. So it's, again, a club tool that can be used. And like I said, our club uses that. And as well, we also use the volunteer assessment form. We have every new member or complete this form. And again, it just gives a little background history and asks specifically whether they've had any abuse or harassment allegations against them. And then finally, the tools that we would recommend be used are background checks. Again, these are done a little differently on the Canadian side versus the US side, but again, it's the responsibility of each club to ensure that people get these checks done. Each Rotarian has to do their own. And I know for our club, we do go with, should a Rotarian choose not to complete it, then they would be precluded from certain activities that may involve vulnerable peoples. So that's kind of the presentation in a nutshell. It was just to, again, define abuse and make everyone aware of the different kinds of abuse. And then the last few slides were tools that can be utilized at the club level for that. So I was going to then turn it back to Tim, unless there's questions at this time, or we'll save them for the end.
Thank you, Bernie. Yeah, we'll save the questions for the last slide. At this point, before I get into the scenarios, I just want to add a couple things, and I appreciate the great job you did, Bernie, going through those slides. So, as it says on the slide, Rotary International, and very specifically Rotary District 7090, does not tolerate and takes very serious any report of abuse, harassment, or neglect of any of its members or to vulnerable people. So every club is different. So the district is requiring every club to identify someone to assist in the training and the reporting of abuse, neglect, and harassment. Now, I have a club of 25 members. I'm the president. I'm also the district, or the abuse, harassment, and neglect chairperson. We don't have a committee. It's me. We've talked about this presentation on a number of occasions. They know that after this training is over, they're going to sit through it. So there's three ways this training, in my mind, three ways this training can be delivered to your clubs. One is there's going to be a video of this. It is in the process of being recorded. When edited and ready to go, it'll be up on the District 7090 website. Under the governance drop down, you'll see the DAPC committee and all of these forms. That training video we're hoping is going to end up there. I think, Dave, we also should make sure at least my contact information, and we can ask each of the other members of the committee if their contact information can be added to that slide if it is not, or that section if it's not, because you guys should have a way to contact us if there's a report of an incident. So one way is you can show the video to your club and show them where the website is and the complaint form. You can do it on your own. You just did the training. This PowerPoint will be available to you through our contact information. If you want to give it a shot, definitions are all in the policy. You could provide them the policy, the protocol, run through the slides with them and the definitions, do the scenarios with them, and more importantly, they sign off. That's the second. The third way, once those contact informations are up there, you're welcome to contact myself. I will myself or find one of the members to zoom into your meeting and try to perform that training with your district. We completed it. Bernie completed it in 30 minutes. With question and answers, we're thinking about 45 minutes. We would love to be a guest speaker at your meeting if that's available to you. Our particular club takes the first 30 minutes as a guest speaker and tries to do it as many meetings as possible. So that's certainly available to you. So you can do the video, try it on your own, or reach out and we'll do our best. I mean, if 37 clubs reach out to us, there's no way we're going to be able to do 37 trainings, but we can certainly do our best. Incident reporting, it should be the person that the president designates. If the president didn't designate it, you report it to the president themselves. The president should be reported to the district governor, should report it to the DAPC committee. We are directed to investigate immediately. And so that's sort of the simple of this whole piece. And I think my final point before going into the scenarios, when we started this probably 2 years ago, there was a lot of suggestions. You should do this. It's recommended. It is past the recommendation stage. So it is imperative and it's necessary for you to protect your own club and help protect our district 7090 and Rotary International against abuse, harassment, and neglect. And the only way to do that is to provide training for each one of your members of what it is and how to prevent it. And more importantly, if they witness it, they're responsible to report it. And that's how we prevent it in all of our activities and all of our club. So there's a couple scenarios. So the first slide says it's important to emphasize that harassment will not be tolerated and promptly investigated. Reports of harassment behavior is an important foundation of an inclusive environment in which everyone feels safe. And that's one of the missions of District 7090. To practice, in case you need to address harassing behaviors, consider each of the scenario below, and we're going to do them together and give you a chance to pick out an answer. Before as we're loading this one in, none of these scenarios have to do with vulnerable people, which I think is important to understand. This is not just about whether or not you have an Interact club or youth exchange program. Most of these scenarios have nothing to do with that. I think it's pretty evident for all of us we should not be tolerating abuse, neglect, and harassment with our vulnerable individuals, but it also should not be tolerated with anyone within any of our clubs. So here's scenario one. A female member of the club tells you, her club president, that she was inappropriately touched by a man at a club event. She doesn't want to tell the board or local authorities about it. What is your best response? A, thank her for confiding in you. Ask her what she hopes will be the result. B, respect her decision not to tell anyone. Tell her that Rotary has no tolerance for harassing behavior and strongly advise her to talk to the local authorities and let her know you would like to conduct an investigation so it doesn't happen again. Anybody have A, B, or C? 1, 2, or 3? The lucky answer is the third response. Letter C, tell her that the Rotary has no tolerance for harassing behavior, strongly advise her to talk to her local authorities. That doesn't stop our responsibility as a Rotarian. If she does not report it, we need to report it to our, whether it be to the investigate it yourself if you are the club president or the person responsible, or identify the reporting form and turn it into the DAPC committee to investigate. Thank you. Let's try scenario number 2. A female regional leader sends you, an RI director, a message that says she was disrespected and defamed on social media by a governor nominee during a Rotary Institute. She wants the governor nominee to be reprimanded, ordered to apologize, and investigate, determine whether he is fit for office. What do you do? Conduct an investigation in which you review the social media posts and interview the regional leader, the governor nominee, the governor-elect, and the current governor, anyone else who is involved. Contact the governor nominee and ask him to take the post down and apologize. Ask to mediate a conversation between the regional leader and the governor nominee. So this one made absolutely sense when we did our first training, but it really doesn't make a whole lot of sense now that I'm sitting before you. The answer is letter A, but we should be conducting the investigation as a committee. You guys should be contacting the committee, so we should be doing an investigation. So we will make sure that we adjust that as time goes on. So if this is reported to you, you should be reporting it to your district or your club DAPC contact or the club president, and the club president should be contacting us so we can conduct an investigation. Scenario 3, a male member reports to you, a club president, that he was disrespected and publicly defamed by another member of the local Rotary at a local Rotary event that you did not attend. He asked that the person be disciplined. What is your next step? Tell him that because you are not there, you cannot resolve the situation. Say that you will investigate and ask him to document the details, including the names and everyone else who has witnessed the incident. Assure him you'll talk to the other person and tell them that such behavior is not appropriate. So it's either A, B, or C. Similar to the other one, this one makes a little bit more sense, but I'll go through. First of all, you don't want to tell them because you weren't there, you cannot resolve the situation. Whether you're there or not, if someone's reporting to you, whether you're a club president or just a member of the club, it is your responsibility to tell somebody else. And saying you investigate is absolutely fine. You probably don't want to do the investigation yourself, but you probably want to tell your club DAPC chairperson, the president, and then they contact us and we can certainly do the investigation. It's certainly appropriate for you to tell them. They need to write down the details because they're going to forget them. Write down who was there, what else, what they witnessed, anything that went on. And of course, C, you shouldn't be talking to the other person and tell them such behavior is not appropriate at that point. It's not investigated yet. I don't remember if there are 3 or 4 scenarios, Bernie. There are 4 scenarios. Your club president invites a female member from another club to talk about a project. While she is speaking, a male member makes derogatory comments and dismisses the ideas she's presenting. Club president asks him to be quiet, but he continues to mumble at his seat and disturb the other members. The guests feel uncomfortable and end her presentation early. As one of the 3 men at the table with the man with derogatory comments, what should your response be? And again, Rotary doesn't tolerate any abuse, neglect, or harassment. Tell the man you want to hear the presentation, and all speakers deserve respect. Ask him to leave if he doesn't want to hear the presentation. Do nothing. It is the club president's job to manage these types of behavior. Approach the man after the presentation, tell him that his behavior was disruptive and unfair to the presenter. Ask what the complaint was about the presentation and how he could have handled it. So it's either A, B, or C. And in this particular case, telling the man you want to hear the presentation and all the speakers deserve respect. Ask him to leave if he doesn't want to hear the presentation would be the most appropriate answer to this particular one. If you're not comfortable and you're not a confrontational person, it is the responsibility of the club president. So you may need to get up and go talk to the club president and say this person needs to be removed or asked to stop. Again, all of our scenarios had nothing to do with vulnerable people. It was just events or things that could be happening either on the internet, could be happening with email, or could be happening at one of your club meetings. Any questions you have for either Dave, myself, or Bernie about any of these particular topics?
What I'd like from the group is that I'd like you to take notes. And if you have any questions that in the future that we don't address here, please feel free to put them in an email to myself or Tim, and we can begin to address those. Similarly, if it's a detailed question or something that's perhaps technical with regards to this subject area, we may not get to the full answer, and we'll make our best efforts to get back to you soon. So I'll recognize John from Orchard Park to ask the first question.
There we go. Thank you for calling on me, recognizing the hand. As you all know, this is not a new attempt by Rotary International to make us aware of these issues. And I thank you for this resurrecting it, so to speak, bringing it to our attention and doing a very nice presentation that covered the important things. Many years ago, when this was first presented by Rotary International, there was a little more specificity to it in terms of their concerns about legalities and the implications of what would happen along the way. That was kind of very exciting. And as I recall, it was not a difficult problem getting the information into the hands of club members. They accepted it, whether they understood it or not is unclear. But at any rate, they accepted it, and a person was designated to be the coordinator of the event. And what seemed to be the thing, and my cat had just decided to join me for the meeting. What seemed to be the major issue was the concern about the background check. The club was doing a variety of things, including doing Meals on Wheels, and persons were very serious about, do we need to do background checks for Meals on Wheels? And that was unclear. And so that was a major problem. Have you all had any experience with that background check and the way people said, gee, I don't need to do that because I'm a really great person. Why do I need to go to the police and get a background check? I've never even had a driving ticket, traffic ticket. Any response to that?
So John, let me just give you what I think. You don't have to go to the police anymore. There's in both the United States and Canada, there's companies that take care of a background check for you without ever getting the police involved. And I can certainly, if you want to reach out, I can get that information for you, because it is very nerve-wracking to go to the police and ask them to do a background check on you. But in our particular club, not everybody gets a background check, just the people that are involved with vulnerable people. So our club does a lot of work with four school districts. And 2 of the school districts have Interact clubs. All of the advisors for the Interact club have background checks. If we have an event that has those students at it, we make sure there's proper supervision, that there's no interaction that would be considered inappropriate with any of the other club members. So all of our club members do not have background checks. I don't know if Bernie's club, everybody does, but in our particular club, it's probably 50-50. Half do and half do not have background checks. So I haven't, I think nowadays with how technology is, it's not as hard to get a background check as it used to be. It still costs money. So there is that piece, but in the slide, in the protocol, it is a choice by the individual that they don't want to get a background check. It doesn't preclude them from Rotary activities. They just shouldn't be around vulnerable people. Hopefully I answered your question, John.
Thanks. In the queue, Barb, I think has a point to raise with regards to background checks. Sorry,
Yes.
Michael and David.
I was just wondering, Tim, you mentioned there's an alternative to the police check
Yep.
for Canadians. Could you please circulate that information? Because our club requires a police background check for all members at least once. And then we have a sort of a renewal commitment. Now it's fallen off since COVID and we want to get back on it. But if you have an alternative, that would be interesting to review.
I'll try to get it out to you. I'll
Thank
make
you.
sure Dave gets it, and this way Dave can circulate it.
Thanks.
And we'll post that information, if available, on background checks on the district website page for this committee. Speaking of that, while I have everybody's attention before I get to Michael and his question, if you are interested in joining the committee, please reach out to Tim or myself, and we'll get you involved. So thank you. And then if you know of somebody who might be interested in joining the committee, bring them along too. If you are not the president of your club, please make sure that you take this information to your president. Talk with your president, make sure they talk with their AG and people in the network so that we can spread the word, because as president, that should be going on a future agenda for your board meeting or discussion, conversation with the members as we've recommended, and then passing that and providing the committee with feedback that your club has signed the policy or the procedure. Okay, with that, I'm going to go over to Michael and his question.
Hey, Dave. I have 6 questions, but I'll ask one first. Does the directors, executives, and officers liability coverage hinge on our reporting capabilities and compliance?
Above my pay grade, I don't know.
Fair enough, Tim. And I know Lisa is on the call, so she might be able to chime in. At this time, based on the wording that I've seen, it does not hinge on that. But again, we are strongly recommending and encouraging. So that's the language that's in the our statement so far. Again, it has to pass the litmus test of being able to say, look, you had an opportunity to pass this and your club chose not to. So that introduces a risk. So I think it's a great question. The committee members on the call will make note of it, and we'll discuss it at our next meeting. Michael,
Okay, I'll wait to ask my other questions after others have gotten their chance.
Dave Barry.
Yeah, three quick things. I found it interesting where I always thought abuse and harassment was the main issues, but you extended it to a definition of disrespect, which I found interesting because that's ambiguous in many cases and it's difficult to ascertain which which is, but it has to be something very severe. I can see that. The other incident, the other situation I was feeling we should have is some form of district monitoring of this. Have you done a survey to see what clubs do what, and so that we can get an idea of how they follow through with these protocols? I think that in many cases, it's some clubs would still be unaware of the necessity of it and the legality of it. My third issue is the full going and getting the police check. I know in Canada it's, what is it, $15, but it's good insurance. A lot of situations can arise in which there are false allegations, and if you find out after that police check was going to report something, then good
Thank you,
insurance.
David.
that's
I
all.
wrote down your question about the survey, and I will make sure the district abuse prevention committee meets monthly. And then I also am part of the governance committee. So I will take that back to our committee and certainly use that suggestion. So thank you.
Good.
Any other questions from those assembled tonight?
I think Michael still has 5 more.
He does. I'm just holding it before Michael has the talking stick. Okay, Michael, you're up.
I think 2 of them will be quick. In the language, and I did a quick scan of it, of the policy. Governor/president, does that refer to district governor and club president? Or is that whether it's a governor or president of a district?
But in the original conversation we had when we were updating those policies, it was the district governor or the club president.
Okay. And I just saw a chat message come up about legal protection, and that's like, how do we avoid slander or libel if we're going to be talking to somebody about an accusation, so to speak? It's kind of a slippery type of area, and well, there are a lot of gray areas, and
Yeah.
how do you avoid, well, slander or libel?
I don't think you avoid it in either way. If you say nothing, you're liable, and if you say something, you're liable. Good. I think it's the job of Rotary to Rotarian to make sure that these incidents do not happen within our club events. And when they do occur, it's part of our responsibility to make sure that we tell somebody about it. And if you saw something and it's accurate and you report it accurately, then there's no slander. Slander is when you are making things up about something that happened. But if you report the facts and only the facts, and the investigation is done based on the facts, there's no slander. I mean, I've had numerous incidences in my going on 7 years as a superintendent in which there was a report of a comment that was made or a gesture that was made. And, if we focus on the facts that happen, then usually you can get to the truth of the matter.
Okay.
But you're right, Michael. The liability is, no matter what, the liability of doing nothing is just as bad as the liability of saying something. As long as you use the facts, as a committee, we can't report any of those facts out to anyone. We're just trying to get to the bottom and make a recommendation to the governor.
Okay.
Let me just also add, of course, the 4-way test is a pretty good first step. And there is a duty to inform yourself about what Frank's talking about, making sure that there's adequate legal protection with regards to your events or activities. One of the things that we are exploring at the governance committee, and of course, if you are interested in this area in terms of good governance, interested in having you join us around the governance committee. We are looking at insurance, and insurance is an agenda item that has been with us for the last 3 or 4 months in getting an update. What's happening is that Rotary in the US is looking at the insurance policy, and there's a different set of steps that are happening in Canada. So we need to also look at what side of the border particular incident or issues are happening on, and there's appropriate coverage there. So I hope that in this Rotary year, we're going to see an update of the Canadian insurance and that information, and our committee can provide impact, feedback and input on that. In the US, I think it's a little further along in terms of RI US developing the next step of the insurance. So look for posts in the district newsletter, online, through social media, etc., as we continue to monitor this.
Okay.
Michael, next question.
As a former corporate executive, we always faced incidences where during our required mandatory type trainings and whatnot, certain employees would refuse to sign the fact that they attended a training session or whatever. What is the sorry about that. What is the recommendation as it relates to training if a Rotarian or volunteer refuses to sign that they attended? Do we then exclude them, or do we sign saying that they did attend?
I was writing it down, Michael, while you were saying it. I have not had anyone ever refuse to sign for a training. In this particular case, I would sign that they were 10 and they refused to put their name down, print their name, and next to it refused to sign or did not sign. Them not sign, them not signing doesn't mean they were in the training.
Okay. All right.
I mean, that's what I would do if in that case. I would print their name and next to it did not sign, or DN, did not, some kind of initial that did not sign.
So this is part of your record keeping, and so that if that is relevant at some point in the future, you've got the record that it says that they did not sign. But at the same time, that what you're doing that training for, they would not be included in directly in those events.
Okay. All right. So we could initial that they did attend, but we would exclude them or have additional supervision. Okay. All right. Under scenario number 1, what if the Rotarian or the female did not want us to pursue it? What do we then do?
I would still report it at the district, report it, have it reported to the district level, and all else fails, report it either to the club president, report it to the district abuse and prevention committee for, and what information you have. And, there's been incidences that I've investigated in which someone does not want to pursue it. And if they don't give us any information, it's hard to pursue any kind, but at least there's record that the club reported the incident and that the incident was looked into. And the final recommendation to the governor may be, we can't pursue it any farther. If it was serious enough, if it was reported to the committee and it was serious enough that we believe law enforcement should involve, we would certainly call law enforcement and get them involved. That's not up to the individual that doesn't want to report it.
Yeah. Okay, my last question is, when I got back home from a trip and I had a Zoom meeting with Foundation this morning, I came across an RI microaggression email, and I did a quick review of it, and I've got to, either I misunderstood it and need to go back and look at it again, But I think that conflicts a bit with some of your statements about if something is reported or you need to, somebody talks to you about something that you should take, I'm going to characterize it as the strong response. Whereas the RI microaggression thing, I think was leaning more toward you talk to the individual to see if you can get them to change their behavior. So did I misinterpret that?
I didn't get an email from RI this morning, so I can't answer it because I don't have any information about that.
Okay, and I can provide some information and context. So as Rotarians, we have access not only to district training like what we are doing here. You can go on myrotary.org in your account and be able to pursue a whole number of different training modules, which are very well done. And I would encourage everybody here to take 20 minutes, go over. If you haven't been on My Rotary, sign up for an account and go over to the training module area. Microaggressions is one of the training modules. So I would suggest that people here go and take that training. I did last year. It took about 15 minutes to go through the module, and it was excellent. So it kind of makes you aware that this behavior happens. This, microaggressions are kind of the in vogue term for something like this. And it gives you some tools to help deal with this directly or reporting and have other people involved dealing with somebody's pattern, I guess, of microaggression. So.
I think that does it.
Okay, because your hand is still up, but that's okay. Thanks for letting us know. That's okay. Anybody else with regards to a question that's come up? One of the things the committee and I are going to work on over the next week or two is to send out a survey to everybody that's registered for tonight. We want to get your feedback. If you have some notes that you want to share with us, please feel free to share them with me or reach out to Tim or one of the committee members. And anything else from Bernie or Tim before we close off tonight?
I've said enough.
No, I'm good.
Okay, well, I'm going to stop the recording now.